there's been an uptick on the right among some Republicans who have called for students or foreign nationals who are demonstrating in some of these pro-Palestine demonstrations or allegedly pro-Hamas demonstrations to have their student visas pulled or to face deportation. What is the administration's response to those kinds of remarks and that kind of rhetoric?
I would just tell you, you don't have to agree with every sentiment that's expressed in a free country like this to stand by the First Amendment and the idea of peaceful protest. I'll leave it at that.
But on the aid portion, how, for instance, are you going to convince people that this is not going to get into Hamas's hands when, for instance, we saw fraud with something like COVID relief money in the U.S. And we're now talking about securing an understanding with Hamas, a terror group, about how this humanitarian aid should be used. I mean, how can you convince people that that is going to be a worthwhile, necessary, and secure endeavor?
We certainly share concerns about any diversion of humanitarian assistance for Hamas purposes. I mean, for instance, fuel's a good example. We know that they need fuel to be able to electrify and to power up their tunnels, for instance, keep the lights on. So we understand that. We're not blind to the potential concerns here over diversion, which is why Ambassador Satterfield is on the ground. Every indication that we have is that it has, in fact, gone to the Palestinian people who are in desperate need for it. We're going to watch it. Obviously, we're going to watch this closely. We don't want to see Hamas benefit any more than anybody else does.
You've spoken before about the emergency need for funding for Ukraine. I was wondering if you can talk about what you see about the urgency for funding Israel, why that portion of the aid that you are requesting is so necessary right now.
Because if we don't get relief, John, we could potentially have a lapse in our ability to provide those kinds of munitions to Israel. We have existing appropriations, funds available to continue to support Israel for a time, for a short time. Again, I can't be perfectly specific because a lot of it depends on the pace of their operations and what they're going through. We also need to make sure we have appropriations to replenish DoD stocks. We have national security interests around the world as well that we have to meet. And we've provided an awful lot out of our inventory. We need to be able to replenish that. But it's vitally important. And then,
speaking of the Americans in Gaza, some are being told that by the State Department, by the administration, to go to the border. We were told on Saturday, or they were told to go to the border, but they obviously could not leave. Are you still advising Americans to go to the border? What's the hold up there?
You'd have to talk to the State Department. I can't speak for the communication that they're having with American citizens there. What I can tell you is that we are working this very, very hard to get them out of Gaza, again, through Rafah. And Ambassador Satterfield literally is working this as you and I are speaking right now. And so we obviously, if we want to get them out, we want to have them available as close by as possible so that can be effected in a very efficient way. But as for what specific messages the State Department is sending today and Monday, you'd have to talk to them.